Beneath the shifting sands of Saqqara, a silence of 4,000 years has been broken. Archaeologists working in the shadow of Egypt's most ancient monuments have unsealed a tomb, a time capsule from an age of gods and builders untouched by radar or the ravages of millennia. Inside they found not just a mummy, but a profound enigma, a body wrapped not merely in linen, but in a shimmering sheath of gold leaf, a silent testament to a mastery of preservation thought impossible for its era. Carbon dating places it at the dawn of the Old Kingdom, potentially making it the oldest mummy ever discovered in the long and storied history of Egypt. But the true revelation lies not just in its age, but in the secrets buried alongside it, secrets that threaten to rewrite the very origins of the sacred art of mummification. The story begins in the early months of 2023. A team, guided by the renowned Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, was excavating near the step pyramid of Djoser, the great stone ancestor of all pyramids. The ground here is a honeycomb of burial shafts, a city of the dead. Yet one shaft was different. Nearly 50 feet below the sun-scorched surface, they encountered a limestone door held fast by ancient plaster. A silent warning carved in hieroglyphs promised divine retribution to any who would disturb the eternal slumber within. When the seal was finally broken, cameras peered into the darkness, revealing a sight that silenced the centuries. A monolithic sarcophagus of solid limestone, its lid still held fast by the mortar of its makers, perfectly preserved after 4,300 years. Within lay the mortal remains of a man named Hekashepes, a high-ranking noble of the 5th dynasty, an age of pyramid builders, centuries before the golden boy king Tutankhamun would capture the world's imagination. But it was not the gold that stunned the researchers. It was the science. This mummy had been prepared with a sacred chemistry, a sophisticated suite of preservation techniques long believed to have been developed much later. Resin coatings, meticulously applied linen wrappings, and the lingering traces of complex oils were all present. Irrefutable evidence that the quest for immortality had reached a point of high technical achievement far earlier than scholars had ever dared to believe. While Tutankhamun's tomb dazzled the world with its material wealth, the tomb of Hekashepes tells a deeper, more enigmatic narrative. It is a story not of power, but of innovation. The mummy was found within a massive coffin, lowered with astonishing precision into its chamber. The walls around it bore no boastful inscriptions, no grand depictions of a divine lineage, only stone and silence. But this austerity speaks volumes, pointing to a different kind of spiritual focus. Nearby, the team uncovered a cluster of other shafts, a network connected to this central burial. One shaft gave up a pantheon of silent guardians, over 100 sealed bronze statues of the gods Osiris, Isis, and Anubis. Another contained an alchemical library of the afterlife, a collection of ceramic vessels still holding traces of the oils and resins used in the funereal rites. Analysis by the University of Cairo revealed compounds not native to the Nile Valley, suggesting vast trade networks stretching thousands of miles, perhaps into the heart of the ancient Near East. The implications are staggering.
Most people stop watching right here. But if you continue...
This was with chemistry, refining ritual, and engaging with a world far larger than previously understood. The sands of Saqqara have not given up a treasure, but a question. It suggests that the quest for eternity is not a single perfected art, but a relentless human journey, one of trial, discovery, and a profound refusal to be forgotten. Beneath the timeless sands of Saqqara, a silence of 4,300 years has been broken. Here, in a burial shaft sealed since the age of the pyramid builders, a discovery has been made that threatens to rewrite the very first chapter of Egyptian civilization. The name, whispered from the past, is Hekashepes. His remains, encased in a limestone sarcophagus and sealed with mortar, suggest he was a man of consequence. But it is the state of his body that has left archaeologists breathless. This is not merely a preserved corpse, it is a masterpiece of ancient science. The tissues, the skin, the very form of the man have been maintained with a startling perfection. It hints at a profound and ancient wisdom, a command of chemistry, biology, and human anatomy that existed long before the first medical texts were ever inscribed. The priests who attended to Hekashepes were not just men of faith. They were pioneers of a science we are only now beginning to comprehend. Yet the true enigma of this tomb lies not in what has been found, but in what remains unseen. Deep beneath the desert floor, ground-penetrating radar has painted a ghostly portrait of the Earth. The scans reveal a large, hollow void just beyond the burial shaft, an unexcavated chamber, silent and waiting. Initial imaging suggests it is not empty. It appears to hold additional sarcophagi, perhaps the final resting place for an entire family line. A lineage previously unknown to history, yet directly connected to the masterminds who engineered Egypt's first great monuments. If these burials are intact, they could forge a direct, undeniable link between the pharaohs of the early dynasties and the laborers who raised their colossal tombs to the sky. It is, as some have declared, the most complete Old Kingdom burial ever discovered. The mummy of Hekashepes was not simply preserved. Its placement within the sarcophagus reveals a ritual complexity, a theological sophistication once thought impossible for this distant era. And then, a glint of the astonishing. Fragments of gold leaf embedded within the linen wrappings. This is the earliest evidence of gilded funerary rites ever found in Egypt, a practice of divine transformation reserved for gods and kings, now found with a man whose name was almost lost to time. Still, in the world of archaeology, certainty is a luxury. Some researchers urge caution, questioning whether Hekashepes is truly the first of his kind, or simply the most miraculously preserved example of a tradition that had already been practiced for generations. The final verdict awaits the results of new radiocarbon tests, delicate procedures to determine the precise age of the body and the sacred resins that have kept it from oblivion. If the dates are confirmed, the known origins of Egyptian mummification will be pushed back by at least a century, perhaps significantly more. But the mystery of Hekashepes is merely a doorway into a far greater secret. As the excavation expanded, archaeologists realized the surrounding shafts were not isolated tombs. They were arteries, leading into a vast, labyrinthine complex that sprawls beneath Saqqara, a necropolis so ancient it predates the Great Pyramid of Giza itself. Within these subterranean corridors lie dozens of unopened tombs, some bearing signs of deliberate, almost frantic concealment. The architecture is a bridge between two worlds, a transitional form that links the simple mastaba tombs of the earliest kings to the geometric perfection of the Great Pyramids. It is as if Saqqara was a sacred testing ground, a divine workshop where the very soul of Egyptian civilization was forged. And the man at the center of it all continues to unravel our assumptions. Recent DNA analysis has yielded another shock. Hekashepes' lineage does not trace back to the traditional southern heartlands of the pharaohs. Instead, it originates from a previously unearthed that Egypt's earliest elites were a homogeneous group from the south, hinting at a far more complex and interwoven tapestry of cultures at the dawn of the nation. In a final stunning twist, microscopic analysis of his linen wrappings revealed fibers woven with a technique utterly alien to the Old Kingdom.
Most people stop watching right here. But if you continue, you'll discover something almost no one knows.
The method is so sophisticated, so precise, it would not be seen again for nearly 1,000 years. It is a piece of technology out of time, a ghost of a future yet to come. If these findings hold, Hekashepes is not just the oldest mummy ever found. He is a living paradox, a missing link between Egypt's prehistoric past and its meteoric rise as the ancient world's most advanced civilization. He is a testament to the fact that history is not a simple line, but a vast, unexplored landscape, where the deepest secrets are not those that have been lost, but those that have been waiting patiently for us to ask the right questions. In the ancient world, it was an ambition of almost divine proportions. The burial of a king was not an end, but the beginning of a complex alchemy, a point where magic, religion, and the nascent whispers of science first merged. It was here, in the rituals of preservation, that the Egyptians began their assault on the finality of the grave, mastering the art of conquering death itself. The unearthing of what may be the world's oldest mummy has already forced us to redraw the earliest chapters of Egyptian history. But the desert is a jealous guardian of its secrets, and the story of this conquest was far from complete. Deep within the sands, another chronicle, written in stone and silence, has finally been opened after lying sealed for over 4,000 years. The truths archaeologists found inside may reveal a world untouched since the age of the great pyramid builders. Under the searing, unforgiving Egyptian sun, a team of archaeologists has breached a threshold into the past. They have opened a tomb, a time capsule hermetically sealed for more than 4 millennia. Within its walls lies a chamber no human has entered, no light has touched, since the day it was locked in the era of the pharaohs. What lies beyond that stone barrier could fundamentally rewrite our understanding of ancient Egypt, altering our perception of one of history's most profound civilizations. The journey began not with the thunder of great discovery, but with a quiet, unassuming excavation on the frayed edge of the Saqqara necropolis, that sprawling city of the dead. Here, archaeologists were meticulously tracing the faint, ghostly outlines of collapsed stone walls when their tools struck not sand, but a void. They had found a passageway. Its entrance was choked with the rubble of ages, its existence unmarked on any map, a secret the shifting sands had kept well. The shaft descended deep into the bedrock, a vertical journey back in time. Each step down carried them closer to an age when the nearby pyramids were still young, their limestone casings gleaming in the African light. At the bottom, they faced a final, formidable barrier, a wall of heavy limestone blocks, sealed with a mortar that had hardened to the consistency of steel. Stamped into that ancient seal was the royal cartouche of a name few had ever seen, the signature of a ruler whose story had been erased from the grand narratives of the pharaohs. The moment the final stone was pried free, the team was met with a silence so profound, so absolute, It felt almost deliberate. The air that rushed out was thin and still, carrying the scent of dust and eternity. Their lights sliced through the 4,000-year-old darkness, and what they revealed was breathtaking. Painted walls blazed with color, the mineral pigments clinging to life with an impossible vibrancy. In the focused beams of their torches, hieroglyphs seemed to dance, telling stories in a language of gods and kings. They saw scenes of solemn royal processions, of lavish offerings being presented to the deities, and the
And now comes the part no one talks about. But this is where the real mystery begins.
intricate, perilous journey of the soul through the underworld. One panel, a masterpiece of ancient artistry, depicted the forgotten pharaoh standing before Osiris, the great god of the afterlife. In his hand he held the Ankh, the symbol not just of life, but of the very breath of eternal life. Then they entered the burial chamber itself, and the true miracle of the find became clear. It was perfectly intact. A magnificent sarcophagus of cedar wood, a precious timber imported from the distant mountains of the Levant, lay in the precise center of the room. Its lid was carved with the serene, sleeping face of the king. Around it, an astonishing array of artifacts lay exactly where ancient hands had placed them. There were alabaster jars, still sealed with hardened resin, their contents a mystery. Golden amulets. Nauntly, there were trays of dried figs and loaves of bread, a final meal prepared for the pharaoh's eternal feast. It was a scene of such perfect preservation. It was as though the king had been entombed yesterday, not during the twilight of Egypt's Middle Kingdom. Recent scientific advances have given archaeologists a way to read such relics as never before. High-resolution three-dimensional scanning captured every delicate brushstroke on the painted walls, preserving the artwork digitally before the slightest change in humidity could disturb the ancient pigments. Residue analysis on the sealed jars will soon tell us of the oils, wines, and sacred unguents they hold. This tomb is not merely a relic, it is a conversation, and for the first time, we possess the tools to listen. In the end, the tomb is more than a vessel for a king. It is a vessel for memory itself. It is a testament to the universal human refusal to be forgotten, a cry for existence that has finally found an ear after 4,000 years of silence. The dust has settled, but the voice from the past has only just begun to speak, bridging an impossible chasm of time to remind us that the quest for immortality is the oldest story of all. The air, sealed for 4 millennia, carried a message from a world dissolved into dust. Within the chamber, alabaster jars, their surfaces cool to the touch, revealed their ancient secrets. Inside, traces of honey, a sweetness that defied time, and perfumed oils whose sacred fragrance still lingered, a ghostly aromatic bridge connecting our world to theirs. It was a scent that had last been breathed by priests in the age of the pharaohs. Most astonishing of all was the state of the contents within the sarcophagus. The fine linen wrappings, which should have crumbled to powder centuries ago, had not fully decayed. Through the hum of modern technology, using non-invasive imaging, a team of researchers could gaze upon the past without disturbing its slumber. On their screens, an ethereal silhouette emerged, the contours of a mummified body, the ghostly outline of a king, preserved exactly as his loyal priests had intended. They were the first to see him since the stone was rolled into place.
This is where things get really interesting. What you're about to hear might explain why this was never meant to be discovered.
But this tomb was far more than a perfectly preserved time capsule. It was a silent, stone-carved testament to an era of profound crisis. Inscriptions etched upon the walls hinted at turbulent times, a narrative of a kingdom on the brink. They spoke of a devastating drought that strained the life-giving bounty of the Nile, of border conflicts that raged in the shimmering heat of the Sinai, where bronze-tipped spears met in defiance. And they warned of the rise of powerful provincial governors, local lords whose ambition began to challenge the divine authority of the crown. The pharaoh's choice of this remote burial site, far from the grand ancestral pyramids that dominated the horizon, now seemed less a matter of tradition and more a desperate act of political calculation. Perhaps it was a final gesture of defiance, or perhaps a pragmatic move of self-preservation, a search for eternal rest far beyond the reach of courtly intrigue and the grasping hands of his rivals. Yet the most haunting discovery was not the king himself, but his voice. Tucked into a hidden recess in the chamber wall, a narrow stone chest, sealed shut with black pitch, had waited through the ages. Inside, nestled in decaying papyrus, lay a set of scrolls, their surfaces covered in a delicate, flowing hieratic script. Early translations suggest these were not records of grain harvests or battle victories, but the king's own personal reflections, a find of unparalleled rarity in Egyptian archaeology. One translated fragment speaks with a stunning human clarity of the crushing weight of the double crown, the symbol of his rule over two lands. It whispers of the profound loneliness of absolute power, of ruling a nation when even the gods themselves seem silent. If fully authenticated, these writings could represent one of the earliest examples of royal introspection ever discovered. The private thoughts of a man who was revered as a god, yet felt the burdens of a mortal. The tomb has also reignited debates about the genius of ancient Egyptian engineering. The chamber's ceiling, a marvel constructed from massive, precisely cut granite slabs, shows no signs of collapse or shifting. It is a silent testament to a mastery of stonework that has endured earthquakes, floods, and the slow, inexorable weight of time itself. More recent ground-penetrating radar surveys have unveiled another layer of forgotten knowledge. A hidden ventilation system, ingeniously carved into the living rock, designed to circulate air and preserve the sacred space for the deceased. Such innovations are forcing scholars to reconsider the technological capabilities of the Middle Kingdom, an era often overshadowed by the monumental grandeur of the Old Kingdom's Pyramid Age. And yet, for all these marvels, there is an inescapable sense of intrusion. We stand in a space that was meant to be sealed forever.
This is where things get really interesting. What you're about to hear might explain why this was never meant to be discovered.
Asked human to see the inside an oil lamp before turning to leave the king to his eternal journey. Now, after 4,000 years, our camera lights and measuring instruments replace the warm glow of flame and the scent of incense. We are visitors in a house not meant for us. The ancient Egyptians believed that to speak the name of the dead was to make them live again. With this discovery, a pharaoh's name, once lost to the winds of the desert, is spoken again in labs and lecture halls across the globe. Some mysteries, however, will remain locked in stone and papyrus. The full translation of the scrolls will take years of painstaking work. Genetic testing of the mummy may yet reveal unexpected lineages, redrawing the lines of power, alliance, and betrayal. And somewhere, still buried under the shifting sands, other stories wait. For we have learned that the past is not a dead and static thing. It is a quiet conversation, and we are only now beginning to learn its language. High in the misty highlands of West Java, a secret sleeps beneath the earth. From a distance, it is merely Gunung Padang, the mountain of enlightenment, a lush emerald hill rising from the volcanic landscape. But as one draws closer, the illusion of nature begins to recede. An impossible geometry asserts itself. Straight lines and terraces emerge from the jungle slopes, defying the random signature of geology. For generations, local legend has told of a king who, in a feat of supernatural power, attempted to build a palace here in a single night. As the story goes, the dawn broke before his work was complete, freezing his ambition into fragmented pillars and unfinished platforms. It is a captivating myth, yet recent discoveries suggest a reality far more astonishing. Beneath this green mantle, evidence points to a colossal, tiered pyramid, a structure of staggering scale and unfathomable antiquity. The journey upward is a pilgrimage through time, a climb of some 370 stone steps carved into the hillside. At the summit, the world opens onto a series of 5 distinct terraces, framed by crumbling retaining walls. Strewn across these ancient platforms are hundreds of hexagonal stone pillars. They are columns of andesite, forged in the fiery heart of a volcano and fractured into perfect geometric forms by the slow cooling of lava. The question that hangs in the humid air is whether they lie where nature left them, or if they were arranged by hands from a forgotten epoch, a civilization so ancient it predates the last great ice age. The very proposition is an assault on the established timeline of human history, suggesting a high culture existed tens of thousands of years before the accepted dawn of civilization. The stones remain silent, guardians of a story that could redefine our own. Here, on a mountain that may not be a mountain, the line between myth and memory blurs, leaving only the profound question of who we were, long before we thought our story began.